It's so much fun to talk about puppies and all of the things that go with them. But today we're going to talk about a topic that's a little more difficult because it can be quite discouraging in the beginning, and that's puppy parasites. Puppies and parasites absolutely go together, and breeders have a very difficult time dealing with parasites to make sure that they are completely parasite-free before they go to their new homes. Sometimes, even though we've done everything we possibly can, it may still come up in one of your first veterinary visits that you may have to do something to get some kind of a medication to treat some kind of a parasite. We just want to let you know that this is a normal part of puppy care. There are several different kinds of worms puppies can get. Hookworm, whipworm, tapeworm, roundworm, Coccidia and Giardia are probably the most common worms that breeders will see. Now, breeders, even the most responsible breeders, can still have puppies that have worms, and it's not always because of a cleanliness issue or being irresponsible. It's because puppies are animals, and animals do have issues with parasites. They can pick them up from other animals. They can pick them up from drinking out of a puddle or a creek or a stream. They can get them from just walking across the yard and then licking their feet. There are many ways parasites are transmitted. Some of the issues with parasites are, even though we are very thorough in our parasite program with our adults, there are worms that can become encysted in the mom's mammary glands, and they're not treatable with some of the normal medications that are used, which just means that every single litter of puppies that's born is treated for parasites. A responsible breeder is not going to wait to determine if they have them. They're going to treat beginning at 2 weeks of age to make sure that they're being taken care of on a regular basis to be able to break that cycle so that they can be removed completely. So at 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you're going to see that those are normal times for puppy medication to have been administered. Now, signs of parasites in a puppy once you get them home can be, it's usually about the stool, loose stool, blood in the stool, mucus in the stool. Those kinds of things are definite signs. Also, having more stool on a regular basis throughout the day than what would be normal for a puppy can also be signs of intestinal irritation from parasites. Now, the good news is that there's great medications that can treat the parasite and treat the puppy to eliminate them. So it's not something that's difficult. It's just the problem is that when the puppies are here with us or with any other breeder, and you've got a litter of puppies together, and you've got 7 or 8 puppies playing together, they pass things around very similarly to that of a preschool of, say, 2 and 3 year olds, where they're playing with the same toys and chewing on the same things, and they're passing around colds and chicken pox and that kind of thing. They're in an environment where there's additional puppies in the litter, so they can pass things back and forth. It is easiest to completely eradicate the parasites when they leave their litter mates and come home with you, because of course then they don't have the other puppies to be able to be passing them back and forth from. So just before we send a litter of puppies home, we do take a stool sample into the vet to have them look at it to see if they do still see anything. If they do, we would purchase the medication from our vet and send it home with you to complete the treatment. If they tell us that they don't see anything, what we like you to understand is that just means that the piece of stool that we took into the vet for them to look at under the microscope and do the exams with, that means that piece of stool may not have carried any eggs or parasites or cysts in it that they saw. That doesn't, however, mean that same very puppy didn't still have something in them that it just didn't shed at that time. So we do everything we can to ensure that it's been a responsible protocol for the puppy parasites, but it is entirely possible for puppies to come home from very responsible breeders and still have some kind of 1 or 2 of those kinds of parasites show up. There are things like coccidia that the medications don't actually kill the cyst or the protozoa that's inside the puppy, but sometimes it can actually help the body to fight it, which just means during the time that the puppy is separated from its siblings, separated from us in our home, that week or two, that's the most stressful period in that puppy's entire life, because they're taken away from everything that they've known, and they're all alone now in their crate and trying to adjust to all that. So it is a very stressful time for the puppy. It's not at all uncommon for a puppy to have an issue with something like coccidia after leaving a breeder because of that, because their body's already under stress, which means that their immune system can't fight things as well as they would if they weren't in such a stressful period. The good thing to know is that when you take your puppy to the vet, you're just going to take a small stool sample. We recommend taking a Ziploc bag and inverting it, putting your hand inside and just grabbing a small portion of that, flipping the bag around again and sealing it, taking it in to your veterinarian. They will look at it under a microscope to do a fecal float. We also do an additional test called a snap test. We do 2 very thorough exams to make sure that we've found anything that possibly can be found. In the majority of cases, when our puppies go home, they've had a negative stool sample at our vet. Not always, like I said. If it isn't, then we do purchase the medication and send it home with you. But every single time you call your vet's office for an appointment, for those first 3 or 4 vaccines your puppy's going to need, they're going to remind you to bring a stool sample in. And that's simply because your veterinarian also knows that puppies and parasites do go together. We like to see 2 negative stool samples in a row before we can feel quite confident that the puppy parasites have been taken care of at that point. Now, your puppy can be completely clear and still go out to your yard, or like I said, a puddle or a stream, or come in contact with another dog, and they can pick up parasites for the rest of their life. But the biggest concern is between the time of when they're 2 weeks of age and up until about 4.5 months, to make sure that the egg cycle inside the dog is broken, and that there's no more eggs in there to develop fully again after that. So just we would like to make sure that you're aware of that, and that at every vet visit that you will take in a stool sample, have the vet check, and then provide the proper medication that the puppy may or may not need for a period of time after that. Now, one last thing. Your puppy is able to play with, if you have a next door neighbor, or your parents have a dog, or you've got a friend that has a dog, your puppy is absolutely able to play with dogs like that. In another video, we discussed vaccines and what you have to do to be cautious about diseases and stuff like distemper and parvovirus. But one caution, if you have another dog at home, or you take your brand new puppy to the neighbors to play, one thing that you should keep in mind is that your puppy could still have these puppy parasites, and it is possible for another dog to acquire them from your puppy. So if you do take your puppy to a home that has another dog, it's best to have your puppy go to the bathroom in, say, a front yard or something where their dog does not go, in order to keep it cleanly, so that you're doing everything you can not to pass any puppy parasites on to another dog. Now, another dog would have to somehow ingest some of that stool, either by sniffing your puppy too closely, or coming in contact with the stool on the ground and then licking their feet, something like that. So if you take your puppy to another home, just make sure to thoroughly clean up any areas that they've soiled in the yard, and try to do it in a separate spot just to give them extra protection. But in general, puppy parasites aren't anything to be overly concerned with. A healthy, well-bred puppy that's been properly cared for and been on a proper parasite protocol is going to be able to have those puppies, those parasites removed from the normal medications without any long-term health effects on the puppy.